Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good moment. I'm Julie Ling, and this is the Voice of Wonder. Today is my favorite day in the whole year. Today is May Day. My birthday's in a few days, and May Day, when I was a child, always signaled the coming of spring, the coming of my birthday. Delight, excitement filled me. When I was a little girl, I still remember in grade school one day making woven baskets out of colored construction paper, filling them with wildflowers, and then hanging them on the doorknob of a neighbor, knocking the door, ringing the doorbell, and running away and hiding with glee to watch them open the door and find the May basket left for them. And I hope today feels like a May basket for you. That's my intention. And this morning, I want to open with a poem that's a prayer, that's a poem that I love, that poured through me years ago. This day is the only day. Water and frogs and fairies, heaven and Marion berries. Here's the whole sky with all of her blues. Here's the whole of us, me and you. Here's the whole earth with her orange, her orange molten core. And what's more is in store for the whole earth, the whole sky, is all the colors, all the hues, all of me, and all of you. For me, May Day this time of year has always been about magic. And if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, May Day is one of the Celtic holy days. It's a cross-border day. It's halfway between the equinox and the solstice. So I think of these days as I think of the wheel of the year as a great big merry-go-round. And if you've ever ridden on a merry-go-round, you know that even though it goes in a circle, there are places where, as it's being pushed, it kind of leans in and gathers speed. And it always feels to me like these are those days, the equinox, May Day, the solstice, Lammas, which is in October. So that would be the equivalent. This would be the equivalent of that for the Southern Hemisphere, the equinox and so on. And there's momentum in them. There's a life in them. There's this energy of acceleration and expansion in them that I really love. And if you've never, well, it's my experience that there's magic in everything and magic everywhere. And if you don't think so, I invite you to consider the magic of a seed. Everything's in there. The whole oak tree is in that tiny acorn. A tall foxglove with all the blooms is in a seed. I don't even have anything that tiny. A little bigger than a grain of sand, but not much. It's all in there. All it needs is a little light, a little rain. It's a poem written by the poet laureate of Pitzer College, where I went to school, that begins, "Oh, little light, oh, little rain, it's only human to complain, but it's so lovely here." All it takes is a little light, a little rain, a little good earth, and that seed, just bigger than a grain of sand, becomes a fairy home of foxgloves, where bees bury themselves to gather nectar and pollen. It's incredible to me. There's magic everywhere you look. The sun comes up and goes down in the morning. There's twilight. That I love the moment where it feels as if it's so granular, like everything is a mist. The darkness hasn't quite come into form, and there's this moment where it feels like it all might just dissolve again into nothing. And yet it all coalesces into form, and a new day is born. That's magic. The opening of a flower is magic. I once had an evening primrose volunteer in my garden bed. I'd never seen one before. And they're called evening primroses, if you don't know, because they bloom in the evening, and they also bloom very quickly. I was standing in front of one as I'd walked my garden in the evening and, pulled some weeds and done some things, deadheaded some flowers. And I saw that the flower was opening, and I felt like a time lapse photograph as I watched in about 30 seconds. This bud that was pinched tight slowly open all the way and bloom. It was incredible. It was magic. So today, I invite you to look for magic anywhere and everywhere. That's what you find, you look for. And on this May Day, that is my desire for you, that you look for and you find magic. I invite you to settle into the singing bowl of your hips, letting the breath draw you in to your own sweet self, letting the breath rise like sap and descend like flower petals in the spring from cherry trees that have just finished blooming. They're almost all passed away here now. And if you've ever seen them, you know what that looks like and feels like. Just breathing into the magic of your breath that's breathing you, whether you think about it or not, whether you intend it or not, whether you will it or not. When willing it often makes it more challenging. Just dropping into this moment that will never be again, this now, here. No matter what's come before. Yesterday, if you watched my video, and even if you didn't, I was having a time. Nothing was going right. One of the dogs that I'm sitting for right now stood outside the door and whined, and his master told me he can't be in here. Just everything went sideways. And it continued that way. I went out to throw a ball for the other dog, tripped on a dent in the deck and fell and put my arm through the rungs of a deck chair. I was in a state and I was grumpy and I was practicing what I didn't want and getting it really successfully. Like I got all kinds of things I didn't want. And by the end of the day, I went to write about it, which is how I make sense of things. And even that, I just kept getting interrupted. The poem's half done. I may never finish it. And I realized this part of me that was coming up was like this rebel who was so fiercely protective of me and the disappointment I was feeling at things going south, the fear that had come up in me for being big and accepting that bigness in myself, accepting my gifts, believing other people when they told me they were there and big, that just was ready to throw a Molotov cocktail in me and everything and blow me up to protect me from that pain and that disappointment coming again. Yeah, like this inner anarchist. And I woke up early this morning. I woke up at 2 something or 3 something, and I went to let one of the dogs out, and the moon is at half right now, waning. She's at half, and as I looked out at the skyscape here, I thought, is that a skylight or streetlight? I don't remember. I live somewhere tiny, and there are very few streetlights, and there is not one over there. And as I stood there for a few minutes, it got a little higher and I realized it was a half moon and she was close enough to the horizon that she was almost orange and just luminous and beautiful and juicy. And I stood there looking at the moon, and something inside of me just fell away, just softened, just relaxed, like, oh, what if this part's welcome too? Can I welcome and receive that fierce part of me that would take me out because she doesn't want me to feel deep pain? Yeah, I can receive that love and that fierceness. I might ask her to use it a little bit differently. And I can love that part of me, absolutely. And as I was standing there, this poem that I wrote a little over 20 years ago, we had a big earthquake in just outside Olympia where I was living, and I was really near the epicenter. And it really shook me up. And my fall yesterday shook me up as well. It feels like it shook some things loose. And I looked for the copy of this poem that was in a Museletter I published at the time, and I hadn't saved it where I thought I had. And I remember half of it. And I want to offer that now because it feels really alive in the times that we have. The poem's called Earthquake Soup. And I don't remember the first stanza yet. And the second stanza goes like this. Put all contradictions in a great big pot and call it the cauldron and stir it a lot. So today I invite you, if you so choose, to put your contradictions in a great big pot and call it the cauldron and stir it a lot. And I invite you today, on May Day, which some people think of as May Day, May Day, and other people think of as May Day, May Day, Day of Flowers, Day of Spring, cross-quarter holiday called Beltane in the Celtic year, a day that celebrates fertility, wonder, joy, warmth, rapture, fire. So as you're breathing and letting the breath breathe you, notice what rebel part of you, once welcoming, is offering you their love in a fierce way that maybe you've pushed aside. And maybe you can receive the love. And by loving that part, temper its fierceness maybe a tiny bit. Ask it to use this fierceness in a way that serves you. Maybe. Sometimes it's just a tiny adjustment that allows the notes to be purer and clearer. Like that. This morning I keep thinking of Peter Pan. None of my flutes is tuned to the scale that will play that line. Bum ba-dum, bum ba-dum. And I'm still hearing it. And I love that Peter Pan's ultimate punishment for Captain Hook when he caught him was, say you're a codfish. Say you're a codfish, after Captain Hook begs him not to slice off his head with his saber, with his cutlass. All right, then fine, say you're a codfish. What part of you? What part of you? Can you shrug and say, all right, say you're a codfish then? What part of you has been causing mischief because he or she adores you and wants desperately to keep you safe and is a call for your love? Is it there? Is the magic inside of the seed? Is there magic inside of all your seeds waiting to be trusted to put down roots and open and bloom? Can you trust the seeds to put down roots and be patient? This flute you're listening to is the fruit of a seed. For decades, I wanted a cedar wood flute, for decades. And a couple of summers ago, I was playing the flute here where I live at the Friday market. And a woman who was visiting and dog sitting for a friend said, oh, I have the cedar flute someone gave me. And I think they'd given it to her in the Southeast. I want to say Tennessee, but I don't remember now. I can't play it. If I come back, I'll give it to you. And it turned out she didn't come back. She asked for my address and she sent it to me. In-mail service is often slow because I live somewhere remote. It arrived the next day. And so many people have told me they're moved by the voice of this flute that comes when I put my lips to it. This is the fruit of a seed, of a dream of mine. What seeds of yours are waiting dreams to be fulfilled? And what simple, quiet, maybe invisible thing like leaving a basket of flowers on someone's door can you give to someone else that will be the nourishing of their seed? I don't know, and maybe you don't. And maybe you pour all your contradictions in a big pot and call it the cauldron and stir it a lot. On this first day of May, I invite you to feel the cauldron that is you being stirred with contradictions, with seeds, with dreams, with rich soil, with sunlight and moonlight and starlight and rainlight. And I invite you to notice where in your life perhaps you have allowed yourself to be big, to show up, to be full of yourself. And that storm of shame from childhood has rained down on you like hail the size of golf balls. My grandparents ducked out of a hailstorm like that in Alabama once when I was a girl. And yet, here you still are, alive and breathing with your gifts inside of us that only you can give. I invite you to nurture those seeds anyway, to resonate, tune in to the tuning work within you, and notice what resonates as true for you. And with a breath of kindness, let the rest go. Because there's a part of you that knows you are beautiful and unique in all the world. And we all want what you have to offer. Whether it speaks to us personally or not, there's someone who's here waiting for the gift that only you can give, only you can bring, the seeds that only you can germinate. Please let them. But we're waiting, some of us desperately, for those flowers to appear in the basket outside our door. And you don't even need to knock. You can just leave them there. When I went to college in Southern California, my friends had never heard of May baskets, and I was horrified. They'd missed out on this their whole 20 years. And so I went to a florist and got flowers that I couldn't really afford and left May baskets on friends' doors. And one of them, I asked her later, and it had fallen off in the bushes, and flowers were half gone by then because this was Southern California. But she carried it inside, and she loved that I had done it. And even though they were half wilted, she treasured those Mayflowers, and I was still glad I did it. And I'm hearing the words now of Aesop: no act of kindness is ever wasted. And that applies not only for acts of kindness to others, but acts of kindness to yourself. So please, today, I ask you, I implore you, be kind to you, because we need you. You're important, you matter. And no act of kindness, no matter how small, is ever wasted. So today, be kind to yourself and let that kindness be seeds, and watch to see how they germinate and bloom, please. So today, I invite you to notice what's blooming in your life. What blooms you can offer to others, not out of any sense of obligation, but out of joy. What's fertile in your life? What's ready to be tasted, touched, felt, experienced? What's alive in you? What makes your heart sing? And what would make your heart sing to share with someone else? And when the doubts, the fears, when your inner revolutionary, ready to toss a Molotov cocktail in everything to save you from any little bit of pain shows up, I invite you to love that part, to make earthquake soup. I thought about bringing up a lamp and putting up so my face would be lit. And I kind of like that one half's in light and one half's in shadow. Because Zerlo Guthrie once said, there can't have a light without a dark to stick it in. There's both. And there's space and room for embracing and receiving and acknowledging the both. And there's yin and yang. There's a part here where there's a little bit of shadow, and here in the shadow side where there's a little bit of light. And that's true of everything in all of us. And I invite you today to maybe embrace it a tiny bit. Embrace yourself a tiny bit, no matter what anybody else says. I don't care what they all say. And you get to listen to the ones who adore you, the ones who love you. Right now, I invite you to listen to me and take this seed with you and watch it put down roots, germinate, and bloom. Happy May Day. I'm Julie Ling. Today, please let your heart sing. We'll be listening. Have a beautiful and blessed day.